Today on Chasing 80s Toys, we're going head to head, mano a mano, Eternia versus Eternia. It's Vintage Eternia versus Origins Eternia. Who will win?
Round one, fight!
All right, up first is the Grayskull Towers. We have the Vintage on the left, Origins on the right. And we'll talk about a size difference. I do like the really sharp sculpting that Grayskull Tower has of the steps that kind of encompass that tower. However, next door, you get some great, figure posability, playability. Those are much wider steps to put a figure or figures battling along the way. Of course, at the base, we have the little dungeon area and the door, which is triggered, kind of, if you mess with these. On the Origins, you have a little spiked ball, and the tram will come by, knock that over, and then that's supposed to fall down and trap somebody in there. It doesn't really work all that well. Over here on the Vintage version, there's the ball that you got back in the day, just kind of nondescript. A flat link chain is what attaches it, and again, it kind of does the job. I think it actually does it a little bit better. This newer linked chain is a little heavier and clunkier, whereas the Vintage version is smaller and sleeker, so it tends to slip a little easier to drop, which is cool. You get that little stickered window in the Vintage, but next door you actually get a for real window, so you could pose a figure up in there, which is way cool. The support arms on Origins are different than the Vintage. It has a very stony rockwork appeal to it, whereas you'll see we're more of like a brown girder with those riveting areas, and the attach track is the same, that ball and socket. If we go up to the top, pardon me, Macho Man, it is big enough to stand a figure in there. Rather deep, which is cool. Next door on the Origin, it's a little shallower, but you can fit a couple figures up there to maybe do battle. And as you'll notice, the tracks, there's the modern monorail track and the Vintage. Side to side there, you can really see the difference now, how much deeper the Origins version is. It's got a significant piece of land coming off of it with some foot pegs for more battles and a rampart window. I like that stonework. You can kind of see in there. Cool effect with the trapdoor grate. We'll get to that in a minute. But I dig it. There's the attachment point to Central Tower. And then on the Vintage version, again, that same attachment point. But really, not a whole heck of a lot going on other than just that Vintage Grayskull feel. Now on the back side, again, I love that sculpt of the steps spiraling all the way around. Really cool, I dig it. Next door, We've got those chunkier steps, and it actually leads to a little window hatch, which is awesome. I do also like how they hid the molds of the two pieces to come together to make the tower, which is rather ingenious. Kind of go along craggy rock lines. But the new wicked feature is you can have a figure back here, and if you press this silver button, it's a trap. And you have a cool molded floor in there. And if you wanted to let that prisoner free, it's been a mistake. There you go. Move the skull head in the back. Hello. And the ramp pops down and out they come. Now you can really see the sculpting on the floor. Neat effects.
Round 2, fight!
All right, in this round, we're looking at the Viper towers. On our left, that's the Vintage. I love that face. He's kind of like, hello. Which is a little more evil on the Origins version. And we'll get to more of what they do in a minute. The tower itself on the Vintage has some really cool sculpting, so I want to get in nice and tight to show you that. Got this great snake on the front and some bones, swords, kind of like a horned animal left over there, which is really, really cool. I love it. I think Viper Tower is probably my favorite of the three. Next door on the Origins, we get a little bit softer sculpt of it. I mean, a little more vicious of a face, just a hint of a bone there. Again, a couple of swords and a bow, and then almost that horned skull, but not quite. But the rock work kind of really stands out. It's very striking, feels very craggy. The snake body, the scales are very pronounced on the Origins, and a bit softer on the Vintage. And of course, we can't talk about the monorail enough. Here is the dragon head mounts for the monorail track. And then that is reproduction chain that I sourced after a lot of misbuys. So that is as close to the flat link chain that I could get. On the Grayskull Tower, it did come with that chain, so that's how I was able to get as close as I did. So that was the only original chain I had, but I'm super glad that on the Origins, they went with metal chain as well. A little bit, again, larger link, shinier, chunkier, but I'm so glad that's not plastic. I remember seeing in the tease, it was black plastic link chain, so really cool to see metal. Again, in a nod to those monorail mounts, they went with the dragon head sculpt. A little softer, and obviously in brighter gold. But the big difference on the Origins is up here at the head. Let's check it out from behind. We're now on the back side of the Origins Viper Tower. And the really cool thing is you have this snake sculpt, and it's not just for looks. That is for spinning the head, but if you pull down on it, Jay's Louise, he strikes. Oh, that was close. That was close. And of course, next door, the Vintage version, you don't, what the, oh, you guys again? We just have a cave for spelunking. Yeah. moving on.
Round 3. Fight!
Well, let's start this round with some bulk measurements. That's Vintage again on the right, Origins on the left. The Vintage is 18.5 inches front to back, and that's measured from the steps to the crank on the back. It's 27 inches wide, and that is from the hook points for both the Viper Tower and the Gray Skull Tower. And it is 30 inches tall to the very tippy top of that Vintage central tower. If you go to the top of the flags, you're at 38 inches. Now next door for the Origins, you're a little wider front to back, 20.5 inches. Still 27 inches wide at its widest point, but it is a little taller at 30.75 to the top of that central tower on the Origins, and then the flags all the way to the top would make it 38.5. And at this point, you're probably wondering, why on earth does Pete have his Vintage track still on there? And well, if you again have watched my previous Eternia video where I built the Vintage one and I had the track crack, well, even more has cracked, even though it's been safely stored away from anybody, any animals, etc., etc. So again, I'm not gonna mess with that track right now, especially while I'm videoing. So here we go. Now the base of the central tower for the Vintage, you know, it's got a lot more silver paint applied on that blue plastic, which is kind of throughout the base there, with black highlights for the hookups for Gray Skull and Viper Towers. Of course, there's steps in the drawbridge next door with the Origins. You get a little bit more of a mountainous base in that darker gray plastic with the silver paint to it. Still really cool. Again, a little bit darker app on those hookup points for the other towers. And of course, you've got the steps and the drawbridge. And the steps on the Origins have a great set of pegs every step. And this way cool feature. Check it out. Oh yeah. If you hit that gargoyle there, the bridge slams up, revealing the moat. But what? There's no moat monster mold down there. We'll get to that. There are, however, molds of the different armaments. And you see those also on the Vintage version. There you have it. But we don't have that same snap up feature. What we do have, you take that off, is a little hidden storage cavity with a spider web to it. And that's a great little sticker. The bridge does not obviously have that effect, so you've got to lift that up. But when you do, that exposes that Vintage Modi there at the base. Hello. And I think these are just really cool gold cherubs, whatever you want to call them. But again, you get that same, ooh, let me get it off of there. Wrong one. There it is. The same spider sticker feel. Now let's check out the lion's face, because that is just what draws you to this set. And I love, again, this is the Vintage, and his eyes, they're just staring holes into you. They've got good depth. I love the paint apps on this guy. Now note his arms. Those, see if I can do this at the same time. Lever just simply curl in. And the mouth, back there, the yawning mouth, is controlled by a little bar that you manually lift up and down. If we pop over to the Origins version, we've got similar silver paint on that slightly lighter blue plastic, but a lot of silver on the paws. And over here, we've got the little power pearl, and the arms articulate from down to over. Really have a grabbing action, which is sweet. And if you notice, the jaw also swings back like he's gonna eat somebody, which is a really cool feature. And his eyes, again, have that depth to him, just like the vintage. So cat-like, even more so. Now the monorail clips are very, very similar. They're still that blue plastic, but a little bit softer, a little more giving than that ridiculous green plastic track that we know and love, hate? Love, hate, yeah, that's it. And you've got some, girdering going on, like rivets. And again, they carried that over to the Origins version in a very similar style. And again, they attach also the same way with the ball and socket for the monorail track. I think I missed that back over here, so if you check that out, see, it's the same way it attaches. However, this track, oh baby, it is awesome. Modern plastic and super, super flexible. I put some serious pressure on it just to show Shabby, and he cringed, but fear not, Shabby. It's in perfect order. And in fact, I think I want to try to put this modern track over on my Vintage Eternia when I get done doing this comparison video, because that hot mess of monorail track needs to be just stored away like a smart person should. Up top, the central tower, we've got the laser gun and flags. Those are reproduction sticker flags. Oh no! Because I did not have an original sticker sheet or the original stickers for when I bought this vintage set off Mr. Barker that he found in the great state of Idaho. But they look great. They do clip on with these little gold clips, which is different than the Origins, which actually just peg in 3 places. You can't move them around. However, the flags are fabric, but you still get those same great logos on the flags, although the colors are changed up a bit. And of course, we also have the laser up top. Now the great thing about my Origins is it has that pesky windshield installed. It's not going anywhere. Unlike the vintage, which is MIA on my example, and it does fire those 2 rockets. So if we pan back over, just a simple rocket barrels and no windshield, I'm sorry. Maybe one day I will find that. Hey, Prince Chuck. Next up, let's check out the elevator in the back. This is the vintage version. Sadly, no foot pegs. You do have a handle where you can get your figure to latch on for a ride, and then it has that little crank on the bottom and some wood grain stickers there all the way up. And then on the Origins version, what the? Oh, good morning, Mr. Macho. Going down? Oh, yeah! I don't know what that is. Be right back. Sorry about that. Here's the Origins elevator, but it does have a couple foot pegs to hold one or more figures, as well as a slightly longer handle. Oh yeah! Where's that coming from? Stop that! And again, we've got the crank and those wood grain stickers, but instead of just some ladder-like appendages on the plastic, we have actually molded features into that plastic strut leading up to the top, which is really cool. Pipe work. Oh yeah! Stop that! We're now at the back of the Vintage Central Tower, and you've got those book shelf type stickers way up in there, which if you've restickered your Eternia is murder, and super difficult to get the ones to wrap around the mechanisms for the claws as well. You can see mine's kind of decided to give it up, but not a whole lot going on other than I wanted to show you the jaw, and there's the rod for articulating the jaw. Very basic. And you will see that listed on eBay as an Eternia wrench. That's the part you need if you're missing it. Now next door, we've got that same mechanism box, but bigger for the arms to be articulated. The same bookshelf stickers, slightly larger, and a lot easier to put on, I might add, especially with modern stickers. Now up top on floor 2, you have, what the, folks, I'm sorry. Those two really should get another room. I don't know, like Castle Grayskull is not being looked at right now, so beat it. But you have a control chair and the console in the back, which also is controlled. You can spin it around. That's right, get it, beat it. You can spin it with the armor up top. And check out the computer for attack. You have that same feature on floor 2 of the Vintage, but it's just a knob and a slide. So a little more basic. Still a computer monitor back there. Popping up to the 3rd floor. Pretty open. I always have some figures posed up here. But next door, for Origins, we've got a weapons rack and the Hordak trooper to battle, to practice, smack around. And you can peg a lot of the armament that comes with Eternia on those pegs, which is way cool. And that's how I plan on displaying those for the long term. Up top, 4th floor, we have the laser, cool stickers, and of course this laser can be taken off, can be put somewhere else, but I like it perched up there. And just like that on the Vintage, it also comes off, which is a really cool thing. You can just move it around the playset if you wish. But I always have defenders attacking Grayskull, and so I want my laser up there. So I wanted to show you how flexible this new track on the Origins really is. I mean, I am putting some serious pressure on that, which is just, it gives very nicely. Again, I can't speak highly enough about that modern plastic. And for me, that was another great purchase point, because it was, I think, well over $100 for a reproduction track to fit. And to me, that was just another $100 towards the $650 price point on this baby.
Round 4. Fight!
So we're on to accessories. Now I wish I had a Vintage Eternia box, but I don't. Those can go upwards of 800 to $1,000 in good shape, so I will happily take my Origins box. Now this was $650 for the Origins Eternia, if you remember, but for me, having that box is awesome. I love that artwork. It's just so explosively cool. Now what's even neater, and I didn't know it until I got into this, was that there is a poster of that very same art, just a hair smaller. And so I may get that framed, but it's just neat to have an Eternia box. And I did back it early. So that means that I got the King Grayskull figure, which is cool. And included with all of them were Mr. Modi. And again, we were looking at his sculpt in the vintage moat, but here he is in person, as it were. Not in the sculpt of the Origins moat, but one that you could play with. Hi, Modi. And then a Eternia comic with the Origins set. I don't have the vintage version of that. Again, that goes for a few bucks. But let's go over some of the other things. So again, on the left is vintage, and on the right is Origins. So we have our monorail motors, and let me tell you, here's vintage. Oh yeah, how about that going in your room? Now let's see that again in Origins. Love it. Just humming along. Doesn't make your teeth rattle, eh? And then they both came with the sled that it can attach to the motor so that a figure can rest on there and kind of superman around on the monorail track. Now the gun sculpt is different on the tips. The Origins is double-barreled and the vintage is single-barreled. Now with vintage Eternia, you got a weapons rack, and as we saw on the Origins, that is built in on the 3rd floor. So that's kind of an interesting twist. Moving over to vintage prison transport. That's got such a cool feature that the bottom drops out when the red vein is hit on the track. And over here, in slightly purple, more purple, is that a word? Purpler, is the Origins version, and it definitely has a cool sculpt going on inside where the vintage one was just flat. Also is the kind of starship transport for Origins. Now the cool thing is, this is hinged to put your figure into, which is way cool. And the back also is hinged. On the vintage version, the canopy just clips on, no hinge, but the back is hinged and does open. With the vintage, we got 2 bridges. So that one goes with the Viper Tower, and this one connects, well, you can connect it to the Grayskull Tower or the Grayskull Tower to actual Grayskull in like a mega setup, which is way cool. But in our Origins version, all we got was just kind of the Viper Tower dock, and it is longer, has more of a wood sculpt to it, and that clips on the back of Origins Eternia. Again, there's the vintage version, slightly darker plastic, a little smaller. And then we get into the accoutrement, as it were. Now, with every vintage Eternia, you have a bag of broken monorail bits. Yeah, that's for real. But you have all kinds of weapons and grappling hooks, golden stingray, laser sword, catapults. Again, here's how some of the weapons can mount to the vintage. Is this little clip that goes onto the side of Eternia. And we have the ram's head ladder, the Origins version, slightly larger, more gold. But again, we have catapult, 2 of those rifles, the bow we know, same sculpt, the golden stingray, laser sword, catapult, claws, rifles, etc., etc. This is so crazy. It's Six Flags in your basement, especially with 3 carriages going. Look out! So I'm not sure who won this battle. Leave it in the comments below whether you pick Origins or Vintage Eternia. And as always, join us on Chasing 80s for the next one, won't you? See ya.
You win.
Yeah.